So hold on. So is the comment that pointing at somebody and going, they were impoverished and they were stressed, and it becomes almost a just so argument because plenty of people live like that and don't become violent.
I'm from outer space. I got Milky Way for blood, evolution in my veins. I'm gone, I've been far away. I'm illuminated now, make a move, start a waves. I've been dreaming about flying for a long time. I had a vision from the first day on the coastline.
This is, let's see, the Choosta. I can't quite tell what your name actually is. Choosta? And you got it on, there you are. What's happening?
Hey, thanks, Doc. Appreciate the opportunity to speak in your space. So what made me raise my hand and want to speak about a situation here is most of the crime that happens in America is really a socioeconomic issue. And I'll break it down like this. We know in the inner city we have like the gang violence that takes place, but then we have like, you know, these mass shootings and different things like that happen. And people say, okay, well, you know, this person didn't have a father, or, certain issues that may have happened, a broken home, or they're suffering from, you know, depression or different things like that. But we know people in impoverished conditions already face these things, and you don't have some of the actual violence that happens or that's perpetuated by, like, it's a specific type of demographic is what I'm saying.
So is the comment that pointing at somebody and going, they were impoverished and they were stressed, and it becomes almost a just so argument because plenty of people live like that and don't become violent. Is that the point?
Yeah, that's the point that I'm making right now. And so then we say, well, what do we do about it, and how do we solve it? So, I don't want to rant too much on it, but from a Georgetown study, we looked at almost 66% of Americans receive some type of prescription pill from a doctor, right? Mm-hmm. So going by that statistic alone, we know that over half the population, they have some type of adverse side effects, because we know most prescription pills are going to have, you know, suicidal thoughts of depression. They're going to have different things that affect you on a subconscious level. So when we really say, well, what's the issue here, then we can look at Tylenol. We know that Tylenol creates a lack of empathy, and we will give Tylenol to infants as young as 3 months, but we won't even give water to infants, you know, until they're about 6 or 7 months. So I think the issue here is that we're actually just pumping people full of drugs too much and not actually working through the issues. We're not having the conversation and saying, okay, well, why do you feel this way? How can we show you what you can do to not feel this way, opposed to just taking a pill? And when we sit back and look at it, most Americans are just on some form of a drug, and they're really
so no argument from me that we're over medicated, but how do you get the resources and the professional army mobilized and the laws that allow us to go in and help them?
Well, now that's going to be really tricky, right? But now, so here in the United States, we're going to be like the last developed, and I hate using the term developed nation, but we're going to be the last developed nation to have socialized healthcare, or a form of socialized healthcare. So when we look at what we know should be done, you know, like we're talking with the other doctor, and I know this is about him as well, and I appreciate him for being here. He looks at us Americans as like, you know, like, well, it's not free, like the government doesn't provide that. Like a lot of people look at Americans and they look at these issues like, well, why isn't the government handling these things? And because it's for profit. We understand that capitalism, especially in medicine, is really the devil. It's the boogeyman in the room that we don't want to talk about. So we the people have to somehow figure out how to get the for-profit middleman out of medicine. We have to do it, or else the pharmaceutical company, they're just going to keep winning, because they're always going to prescribe a pill for that problem.
All right, so these are big topics. Thank you, buddy, for bringing all this up. You always don't know where to start with some of these things. I'll let you try to struggle with it. People have lots of strong feelings, but these are giant, sweeping statements, and we have to kind of get granular at solving them. Any thoughts?
So thank you, Choosta. So you mentioned many things there. I think you're right. I think that if you look at people from similar demographic backgrounds, there's certainly violence in some areas versus other areas. You know, there's poverty all over the world. There's entire countries where a lot of the population are in poverty, but the level of violence isn't that high. So I think that you can almost look at violence as a public health issue. So it's almost like a disease that spreads into areas. You know, even talking about London, I think it's quite different from the States in that it's very, very packed together, and you have impoverished estates right next to very well-to-do posh areas, and you have intense violence within those estates. And I think it's all about modelling. So kids grow up in these small ecosystems and see other people like gang members acting violently, getting money, being drug dealers. So they emulate that. Whereas somebody who lives in London a couple of miles away will not see that. They'll have hardworking parents, they'll have legitimate ways of making money, they'll have good schooling. So yeah, I do agree that it's not just the demographics, it's also about the environment and what children model and what they copy. The culture, exactly.
The culture again. The culture. Our culture is sick. It is. Maybe that's a thing to, look at as a disease model too, because that's always the way I felt. It's like you study the culture and cases within the culture and move the culture if you can. Media is the great mover, if you can do that. He also made another point. I think you would probably agree that if indeed the number is correct, that 60 to 70% of Americans take a psychotropic medication, certainly the number is big. That's, I'm guessing, a lot worse than Great Britain. And the idea of, and again, he is right about the fact that it is the insurance companies and the drug companies that put the forces in place that motivate the prescribing. In other words, doctors are not paid to sit and talk to a patient. They're paid to prescribe something and move them through. That's the model, and it reinforces what we get.
Can I first of all ask what Tylenol is? Because I think it has a different chemical name here.
It's acetaminophen. You have paracetamol where you are. Acetaminophen, paracetamol where you are.
Oh, right.
I don't know what one study does not a truth make. So please, of the millions and millions of prescribing of Tylenol, Dr. Dawes and I work with patients. People have empathy. Plenty of people have empathy. It's not as though empathy has disappeared. And when empathy has disappeared, it's a very specific situation, which we were discussing. But I will not argue with him that there's overprescribing. I think he's absolutely correct about that.
So my thoughts would be, first of all, if that's accurate, if it is literally 2/3 of people in America, then that's mind-blowing to me. I knew it was high, but I didn't think it was anywhere near that high. I think in the UK, we have a problem with overprescription of antidepressants for low-level depression, where we both know that it's not particularly effective. It's effective for moderate or severe depression. And I think that's because the GPs, so we call them general practitioners, I think we call them family doctors, are so stretched for time to see individuals. They only have 10 minutes.
That's the way it is here.
It's much easier to just prescribe an antidepressant.
10 minutes, eternity here. And by the way, there's a cultural problem here too. People get angry if you don't prescribe to them. They get very angry if you don't prescribe the antibiotic, you don't prescribe the anxiety medicine, you don't prescribe the sleep medicine. They're furious when they don't get that's a cultural problem. We just put, I don't know if you saw that on the board, that 20% in the last 12 months have received some treatment pharmacologically for mental health disorder. There it is. 19.2% of adults have received any mental health treatment. I'm assuming that means medication. In the last 12 months, 15.8% have taken prescription medication. There it is. So that's in 12 months. I don't know what the number would be at any given moment. So again, these numbers, we can throw around lots of numbers. I hope people have learned during COVID that epidemiology is a fungible discipline and can be moved in very different ways. So pay attention. You need the way science works is you need lots and lots and lots of repetitive studies to get to an understanding that is approximating the truth. You can't look at one study and go, there is the truth.
What I think might be different, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is that I think in the States, the pharmacological companies have a lot more gravitas, so they influence doctors because they're part of the whole insurance scheme. In here, our pharmacological companies.
No, in fact, the opposite. We as physicians are not allowed to in any way have contact with the pharmaceutical companies. Except in academia, they fund a bunch of research and they fund some of the speaking tours and things like that of the academic physicians. But out in the community, you can't even take a pen from a pharmaceutical company, or you will hear from an ethic. You're professional ethics committees. So you're not allowed to do that in the practice. But then people step out and they work for the companies, or they have them fund their research. So there is a weird, cozy relationship. It's just not directly in the care of the patient. And in terms of care of the patient, the way the insurance companies work is you usually can't prescribe medication that aren't already generic. So the drug companies aren't even interested in what we're doing, because they can't really influence what we're doing unless it's these highly specialized situations like rheumatic disease and oncology, where they're making money off these highly expensive, or COVID. Now we have Paxlovid out there. So it's a very complicated, weird relationship. Very weird. People imagine, people fantasize that somehow doctors get paid or kicked back or something. It's the exact opposite. There is absolutely a gigantic barrier between practicing physicians and the drug companies, except in these certain situations that I mentioned, and that makes it weird. What were you going to ask?
Okay. So I have to ask, what do you think is the reason that there is such a high prescription rate in the States, apart from what we've already talked about, apart from the culture of wanting tablets? Is that the main issue?
Well, the main issue is the insurance. Look, it's how we got the opiate crisis, right? 90% of the Vicodin prescribed in this country, in the world, was prescribed in the United States, because when a patient came in with pain, the insurance company would only pay for prescriptions. You'd come in and you prescribe. They would not pay for psychotherapy, physical therapy, or any of the neurobiofeedbacks or anything. No, just get them in, get them out, get them on the pain meds. And then a discipline developed that said that pain medicine is the answer to everything, and the insurance companies got very involved with that group and supporting them, and it became a discipline. Literally, where people like me, who was objecting strongly to what was going on then, was told that I was causing suffering, and I was a dinosaur, and I was opiophobic, and I was interested in harming people, and I should just get with the game and start prescribing opiates, because that was the answer to all, that there should be no pain in the United States. The answer was opiates. Ridiculous, absurd. So that's the kind of thing that happens. The system kicks in, the disciplines develop, and then the drug companies support the disciplines that support their products, and there it is, and the research and everything else. So, okay, well, listen, I walk away upset. I'm a little more upset than I thought I was going to be. Maybe you can prescribe something for me to help me feel better and sleep well tonight. So again, to answer your question also about the system, it's there's no reimbursement for spending time with patients. Everything is as quick as possible, and then the culture reinforces all that. People are, wanting a medication, they want it now, and they want to get out, and they don't want to, and they'll pay for cosmetic procedures and things like that, but they don't want, the reality of being biological and having medical problems is just a nuisance, and they don't want to be bothered with any of that. And certainly spending time and energy and focus helping with that is, no, just fix it, get me out of here. Very weird culture. The book is called, let's put it up there, In Two Minds. Come on now, Caleb, there it is. Stories of murder, justice, and recovery from a forensic psychiatrist. Your YouTube again, Dr. Das, where can they find it?
So it's called A Psych for Sore Minds. There you go, it's right there. And it's just a smorgasbord of topics related to true crime and mental illness. A bit lighthearted, a bit sort of surreal, a bit funny, but talking.
And so, ladies and gentlemen, that's basically the end of the segment right there. There's
been studies that linked acetaminophen, Tylenol, to lack in lower empathy. There's also new studies that link Tylenol to autism, especially in high use for infants. So a lot of infants were prescribed Tylenol. Well, just understand there's a direct correlation between Tylenol and autism. There are already correlations between Tylenol and lack of empathy. And that's not just in children, that's also in adolescents and in adults.
I'm from outer space, I got Milky Way for blood, evolution in my veins. I'm gone, I've been far away, I'm illuminated now, make a move, start a waves, I've been dreaming of